There's a really interesting mechanism when it comes to getting what you want in your life. There's a really interesting thing that happens when you step into your highest purpose and you align with your goals and you're really, really on it. Like you're doing everything. You are working out, you're taking creatine, you're eating clean, you're sleeping, you're not smoking, you're not drinking, you're not jerking off. Like when you're really, really on it, there is this immense power that happens in your life. And you quite literally physically feel it. You feel surges of testosterone. You feel like Superman, really. You feel like Superman. And in a lot of respects, you um, are turned on, maybe quite literally turned on by a beautiful woman, but you're turned on by life. And there's a really interesting dynamic that happens when you're healthy and when you're happy. Naturally, as a byproduct, you have a much higher sexual arousal in your life. You have firm erections when you wake up in the morning. You have a much higher libido. You want to talk to beautiful women at the gym. You think about sex a lot more. And all of these things happen as a byproduct, interestingly enough, of when you're really, really in the zone. And the problem with these kinds of things is that these can turn into two of the biggest killers of any drive or any ability for you to actually step into the next level of where you want to go, whether it's your business or your body or your creation or your connection to God or your ability to talk to beautiful women or your ability to just win in life. And these are what are biblically called the king killers. Okay, and this is pride and this is lust. And if you look at the kings in the Bible, you got Nebuchadnezzar, right? Nebuchadnezzar was one of the kings that died because of lust, basically. He exhibited a lot of arrogance, and which essentially led to his downfall, as well as King Herod. If you look at the books of Acts and you look at the books of Daniel, but you also know a lot of the characters and the famous ones like Samson and David, and they also struggled with a bunch of decisions that involved lust, which eventually destroyed their power and their resolve. And what's really interesting about these king killers, as they call it biblically, is that they are actually the opposite ends of the energetic chakra system. So if you follow any type of Eastern philosophy, you'll know that the chakra system has to do with different energy centers in the body, and they represent emotional expressions within the human experience. And they have a positive side as well as a shadow side. So you can have attunement and connection to God, but that can also turn into pride, right? You can also have drive and energy and focus, but that can also turn into lust, right? So they're actually seemingly the opposite ends and the opposite spectrums of the human condition. And what's interesting is that energetically, you're pushing higher and higher and higher towards God, but you're also descending lower and lower and lower and deeper into the earth as you ground physically into your body. And it sort of creates this energetic capacitance to where it's very, very difficult for you to be able to anchor in such a frequency of power because you are amplifying the type of power in your life. And so I'm making this video because if you're really locked in and you're really on your goals and you really want to make 2026 a phenomenal year with everything, I'm telling you that you need to have God in your life because the more you lock in, the more of a magnet you become to everything you want. More beautiful women start looking at you, more opportunities come to you. You actually start making more money. Money becomes easier for you to make. The flow comes in. You get into a rhythm, you get into a routine, and that power and that ability for you to create more abundance and flow and resources into your life makes you more proud of yourself and makes you, it kind of becomes this really powerful and an inspirational cycle towards a really, really positive direction, but it can very, very easily corrupt you, right? You know, I'm sure you know the Scarface expression. What is it? First you get the money, then you get the power, then you get the women, right? So it's the dynamic. It's exactly the dynamic we're talking about, right? So if you've got a really beautiful woman that is looking good and she's loving you and she's taking care of you and she's supporting you and she's essentially feeding you in the energy in which you really resonate off of and vice versa, and you create that symbiosis with her, it's really going to amplify an even higher level. It's not to mention just lusting after women in the gym, which is not good. It's not to mention just thinking about sex in general, which is generally not a good thing because it can really knock you off your game. When you get into that type of especially godly relationship with a woman where you see sexual energy and the muse like energy as even more of a resonance capacitor to even strengthen you even more, that's when your energy capacitance becomes almost supernatural. It becomes almost uncontainable. And that's why a lot of men turn to pornography to let off the steam, or they turn to sex. But most importantly, it's men turning to the orgasm, which is like completely deflating the balloon inside of you. And that's ultimately what you want to avoid is having the orgasm. But the problem with having such a high level of power and such a high level of sexual energy and raw capacity and testosterone and DHT and willpower is that you can really, really get inflated in your ego. You can make really irrational decisions, especially if you're dating a woman, a lot of the times you'll think, oh, I have more power, I have more money, I can go cheat on a woman, or I can go do these things that normally you wouldn't think about doing. But because you're in such an elevated state of power in your life, a lot of these thoughts begin to enter your mind. Because there's an axiom, whether you agree with it or not, and this definitely doesn't happen when you're dating a godly woman, but sometimes there's this common agreement among people that a man of a very, very high value is is more likely to cheat on women, and furthermore that the women are actually okay with that as long as they are being taken care of, as long as they are having their material and their financial needs met through this man. There is this sort of understanding in a lot of circles where if a man has a very, very high level of achievements or resources, that they will compromise his fidelity for what they gain from dating this man. Now, that's a whole different rabbit hole, which I highly don't recommend doing that. But that is indicative of a man that is losing himself to his lust, a man that is losing himself to his power. He is letting his power dominate and control the decisions that he makes in his life, which could very, very ultimately quickly lead to his downside, lead to his downfall. Because if he loses his sexual charge, then he loses his drive. If he becomes too caught up in his dopamine or his feel-good chemicals or lounging around or sleeping with women or spreading his sexual energy or orgasming all the time and losing his edge, basically he's going to lose his ability to show up and make more money or be a better leader or be more decisive or have more power or resonance capacity to make good decisions for his empire that he's built. And so they're very, very much in tandem with one another. They work very closely with each other. And you have to really, really monitor these feelings. And so what I'm saying is that at a certain point, you can't do it alone. You have to lean on God. You have to lean on Christ. You have to ask Christ to intercede in your life so that you cannot get carried away with the power that you feel. Because power is very corrupting. Even just a minor amount of power. If you've been in a dynamic where you feel very powerful in a sexual dynamic or a financial dynamic or a physical dynamic or some sort of a martial arts dynamic where you're clearly a superior person, just a little bit of a taste of that power is really, really, really addictive. And you got to be careful. So if you're on this path and you're feeling all of this power and you're feeling this just like, what do I do with all of this power? Give it to God. Give it to God. Put it on God. Ask God to tone it down for you. Ask God to take the lust away from you. Ask God to take away the thoughts that enter into your mind when you're feeling these surges of power, because you will feel these surges of power. It's inevitable. You'll get more beautiful looking at women looking at you. You'll get more opportunities coming to you. You'll be making more money than you've ever made in your life, and you will feel super high. And you got to ask God to take away your pride. You got to ask God to take away your lust. Because if you don't do that and you're really, really on this upward trend, you will fall catastrophically. And I want to assist you on this journey. If you're already winning in life, if you're already feeling good, but you want to take it to the next level, and you don't know exactly how to channel this power that you're feeling into a very constructive and healthy way, and you're letting this energy take you over, I want to help you because I've been going through this journey for a long period of time, and I know exactly how to channel that energy, exactly where to put it in, exactly the techniques on how to calm your nervous system so that you're not shot, exactly how to align your decisions in your life totally with your soul mission so you're not knocked off the edge when you feel all this power and you just want to spread your seed somewhere or go make a really poor and reckless decision. So if this sounds like you, click the link in my bio. We'll book a call together and we'll talk about a way in which I can support you to get you to the next level so that you can channel this raw power that you're feeling into actually getting the results that you want, into actually channeling this into the fruits of the spirit: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. It's the biggest one. Self-control, guys. You gotta have the self-control. You cannot lock in unless you have God, because this inevitably will happen and you need support. So book the link in the bio, and I'll talk to you soon.